Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Meridian Planning and Zoning Commission on January 18th, 2018. Let's begin with roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner McCarville?
Here.
Commissioner Yearsley?
Here.
Commissioner Perot?
Here.
And Commissioners Fitzgerald and Casanelli are absent.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. And we do have a couple of changes, amendments to the agenda. We need to amend the request, item 4A, preliminary plat approval consisting of 158 lots and 17 common lots on 35.35 acres of land in the R8 zoning district. And the other part of that needs to be amended onto the agenda, it is an annexation and zoning of 35.35 acres of land with an R8 zoning district instead of just the preliminary plat. And Sonia will give us more information on that when we get to the action item. But at this point, could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Oh, you put more back there. You snuck more in.
This is interesting.
Oh, they just added the file numbers. Okay. Yeah, they were on the staff report, but item 4C, the file number on that Kobe Cope is H-2017-0157, and the file number for item 4D, the designing team rezone, is H-2017-0166.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Wilson.
I move to adopt the amended agenda.
Second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the amended agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is to adopt the consent agenda. We have the approval of minutes for the January 4th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and findings in fact and conclusion of law for the escape room H-2017-0155. Could I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Wilson.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
I second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. So at this time, we will continue, move on with continuing item 4A, the public hearing for Turf Farm subdivision H-2017-0149. And right after I explain the hearing process, we'll start with the staff report. The hearing process for this evening, we'll open each item individually and then start with the staff report. The staff will report their findings regarding how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and uniform development code with the staff's recommendations. After the staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case for approval of their application and respond to any staff comments. The applicant will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open to public testimony. There is a sign-up sheet in the back as you entered for anybody wishing to testify. And any person testifying will come forward and be allowed 3 minutes. On our screen here at the podium, you'll be able to see your timer. If they are speaking for a larger group like an HOA and there's a show of hands to represent the group, they will be given up to 10 minutes. After all testimony has been heard, and the applicant will be given another 10 minutes and have the opportunity to come back and respond if they desire. After that, we'll close the public hearing and the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully be able to make a recommendation to City Council. So at this time, we'll open with the staff report for item H-2017-0149 Turf Farm subdivision.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. The applications before you with this request is a preliminary plat and an annexation and zoning. This site consists of 35.35 acres of land. It's owned RUT in Ada County and located at the northeast corner of South Eagle Road and East Lake Hazel Road. Adjacent land use and zoning to the north and east are existing and future single-family residential properties in the Hill Century Farm subdivision, zoned R8. The south is East Lake Hazel Road and rural residential properties, zoned RUT in Ada County. And to the west is South Eagle Road and rural residential properties, zoned RUT in Ada County. The comprehensive plan future land use map designates this property as medium high density residential, which is 8 to 15 residential units per acre. Since this application was originally submitted, the plat has been revised per staff's recommendation to include 38 more building lots than originally proposed, with a mix of attached and detached units in an effort to increase the density and provide a mix of housing types. And that is because of the current medium high density residential designation. The applicant is requesting annexation and zoning of 35.35 acres of land with an R8 zoning district with a step down in density from medium high density residential, as we discussed, is 8 to 15 units per acre, to medium density residential, which is 3 to 8 units per acre. With the increase in density and provision of lots for attached homes, staff is recommending an R15 zoning district instead of the requested R8 to accommodate the smaller lot sizes proposed for attached dwellings. The preliminary plat consists of 158 single-family residential building lots for a mix of attached and detached homes and 17 common area lots. The subdivision is proposed to develop in 2 phases, as shown, north and south, with the north half expected to develop later this year with single-family residential detached homes at a gross density of 3.32 units per acre. The south half will include a mix of attached and detached units at a gross density of 5.48 units per acre. Overall, a gross density of 4.47 units per acre is proposed. This development will be integrated into the adjacent Hill Century Farm development. One access is proposed to the site via South Eagle Road, and a stub street at the north boundary will be extended from Hill Century Farm, subdivision number 5, for interconnectivity. 10 Mile Creek runs along the east boundary of the site. No access is proposed to the east, across the creek, or via Lake Hazel Road. Because Lake Hazel is designated as a residential mobility arterial, which is designed to accommodate high volumes of traffic and intended for regional movements, higher density is desired in this area. That is why the applicants revised the plan to include more density up next to that residential mobility corridor. Higher density, 2 stub streets are proposed to the property at the southwest corner of this site for future access and interconnectivity. A segment of the city's regional pathway system is proposed along the west side of the 10 Mile Creek in accord with the Pathways Master Plan. The creek is required to be left open as a natural amenity and protected during construction. And this is a copy of the proposed landscape plan. The applicant has not revised this yet. They will prior to the council meeting, so this does not match the current configuration of the preliminary plat. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the single-family residential detached homes with the development that are consistent with those in the Hill Century Farm development. Written testimony has been received from Mike Wardle, Brighton Corporation, in agreement with the staff report. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions in Exhibit B of the report if council determines a step down in density is appropriate for this property. Staff requests that a revised landscape plan, open space exhibit, and engineering plans that coincide with the reconfigured plat, concept elevations for the attached units, and revised legal descriptions for the R8 and R15 zoning districts, as recommended by staff, are submitted prior to the city council meeting. Staff will stand for any questions.
Sonia, I have a question. Could you go back to either one of the plats there? Okay. I just wanted to see that again. So there's no access out to Lake Hazel?
Madam Chair, no access is proposed.
Okay. And probably won't be, that corner is developed as it's probably going to be, right?
Yeah, there is a, well, it doesn't show the preliminary plat here. The preliminary plat for Hill Century Farm that comes down here does have an access approximately in this location where the pointer's at. Mm-hmm. So The applicant did not propose an additional.
There's nothing going out there.
No.
Okay. Okay.
There is an emergency access for fire approved here, right at the corner of the site, though.
Any other questions for staff at this time? Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Madam Chair, Commission members, Mike Wardle, Brighton Corporation, 12601 West Explorer Drive in Boise. It is rare that we find that staff demands greater density than we propose. But Sonia, if you would pull up the first slide on the slides that I provided to you today, just to illustrate exactly why we came to the, well, a lot of back and forth with staff on really the objectives of, there we go. When we annexed and zoned Hill Century Farm into the city several years ago, we basically blended a low density, medium density, and medium high density comprehensive plan designation into the medium density. And so when we brought in the turf farm addition to Hill Century Farm, we just kind of assumed that we would complete the project in that same context, kind of the medium density residential. We do acknowledge that the Lake Hazel is a future mobility corridor that Sonia had mentioned. And so higher density is certainly a possibility, but the part of the problem with this site is that the intersection of Lake Hazel and Eagle Road is up on a hill, and there's a lot of grade to get back out to the flat. So ACHD was reluctant to give us anything other than a temporary access to Lake Hazel that would eventually become just a right-in, right-out only. In reality, the quarter-mile access on Eagle Road that we propose with this application is really the most functional and about the only way that it can be done. But we do provide, as Sonia noted a moment ago, an emergency access out of that cul-de-sac area, and fire department is, but we have two access points in and out of the subdivision regardless. So rather than fight and come to you and beg for a down zoning or a step down, I guess is the term for the comprehensive plan, we agreed that let's deal with the area that's closest to Lake Hazel, and we would go to a product that we actually did in the Tuscany project several years ago there were the villas in Tuscany. So these are products that we have built. Some of them are, well, they have the ability to attach in paired homes. Some of them will have to be attached, but clearly they have the opportunity to go either direction. So we do increase the density, and overall, in that southerly half that was revised since the submittal, the actual gross density is 5.5 units per acre, and the net density is 11 units per acre. So we achieve kind of a middle ground agreement with staff on increasing the density because of the location of the comprehensive plan. It works for us. It will obviously work with the city. So unless you have any other questions about it, do I just hit the button to go to, I want to go to the slide, Sonia, that just is my hand graphic. It's about, there you go. Just to show kind of the open space element that comes with this change. We do a greenway kind of a separation. It's not intended to segregate the community, but just gives it a nice buffer. So between the slightly larger single-family lots and these smaller attached and detached parcels, plus overall landscape open space area in this plat is 21%. So it really does accommodate, gives us good access to the pathway that we've already built to the north boundary of this down 10 Mile Creek. And with that, we are in full accord with the recommended conditions that Sonia has proposed to the commission, including the necessity of, by noticing up City Council going to an R15 for the southerly area simply based on the size of the lots. Dimensionally and so forth, it doesn't really change the visibility, but obviously a slightly smaller product. I would end there and answer your questions. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley?
Did you guys consider another access across the 10 Mile Creek to your other side of the subdivision?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Yearsley, we did, but we've already put in two $400,000 crossings of 10 Mile Creek.
Okay.
One in the project itself, but then we actually rebuilt the one on Eagle Road before the project started, just so that we didn't get the project out there and then have to have it done in the future. So we opted not to put that kind of money in, and frankly, it doesn't necessarily change the access and so forth, because this property needs to drain north into that Eagle Road access point, and going to the east, yes, it would get us to that other access across the way, but it's an expensive proposition.
Okay. I figured as much, but I thought I would at least ask.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Then I'm assuming the blue line on the other side of the 10 Mile Creek is the pathway. Is that not correct?
Madam Chair, that actually is the center line. That's the creek itself. And
Oh.
so you see, it doesn't really show up here because I didn't finish it off, but you can see the pathway coming down to that Greenway connection. There, yes. That pathway exists at the north boundary thus far, so it will come down and be in that at least 50-foot wide corridor from center line, the blue line, to the property line of the lots.
But you won't extend it down to the
Oh, it extends down all the way down to Lake Hazel Road.
Oh,
I just
awesome.
my graphic was just a quick and dirty to send to Sonny and say, is this acceptable?
Okay.
So I didn't finish all of the detailing.
And it's not something, but and I don't know how expensive it would be, but I know you can get some fairly inexpensive pedestrian bridges.
Actually, when you look at the north corner of this phase, you see that large green area.
Mm-hmm.
That is where it connects across. It will go across there.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, there is an east-west connection across 10 Mile Creek, about a quarter of a mile north of Lake Hazel and a quarter of a mile south of the entrance to the north.
Okay.
So yeah, we've accommodated that. It just, again, this is a schematic that didn't show all of those details.
Right.
The landscape plan probably does. I'm not sure, Sonia, if it does or not, but it clearly is part of the project. So.
Okay. Nope, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question. So, yeah, leave that landscape plan up there. So that was the original plan you brought to staff
Yes, without the change in the southern phase.
with just a little lower density. So
Yes.
if you had your druthers,
No, we're fine because we're familiar with the other product that will fit into the southern phase now. It's a product that we built, so we're not, we're certainly not here asking for, going back and doing less density. We can accommodate the objectives of the comprehensive plan and do a project that we're comfortable with.
yeah, I'm looking at and the way everything's locked into that corner. I'm like, the less density is almost, it's a little better.
Well, it's basically the same as we've done in all of the rest of the Century Farm project. So, and by kind of separating and creating that slightly different product in the southerly phase, it adds a little bit. Anyway, I'm not here to. We're happy with the change if the commission concurs with staff's recommendation, and it's an unusual circumstance where staff kind of drags us into a higher density project than what we had proposed, but we're fine.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Well, there was no one signed up to testify on this issue, but is there anyone in the room who would like to at this point? Okay.
And I'm not going to rebut my testimony. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, could I get a motion to close the public hearing for item H-2017-0149 Turf Farm subdivision?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
I move to close the public hearing on H-2017-0149.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2017-0149. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any thought,
I mean, I can kind of kick off, and then,
Commissioner Wilson, go ahead.
I'm okay. I mean, I think it looks good. I appreciate the applicant working with staff. I think the creek is great, and I appreciate Commissioner Yeardsley kind of line of questioning, kind of fleshing out what that's going to look like, and I'm even more impressed by what that's going to look like. I don't know, I think there's a lot of open space, and, you know, I live near Tuscany, and I know kind of what that's gonna look like because I, you know, walk through that area a lot, and I think it'll look really good, even though maybe on this plat it looks really, really dense. I think what it's gonna look like is gonna be really nice. So would be open to approving it.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yeardsley.
Yeah, I kind of find it interesting that it's not every day that staff actually wants more density, so.
Yeah.
And I understand the reason why, because, you know, Lake Hazel's anticipated to be a future 7-lane roadway. And, you know, people may not think about it now, but it's good to plan for that in the future, and having that density there, I think fits. And I know it's not the applicant's purview, but that last remaining piece down there is going to be really hard to develop, just given the grades and stuff, but it is what it is. It might be a better park than anything. So I think it fits. I like the, you know, the amenities, having the pathway through there, and the crossing just down farther. I think that makes fits because it gives them a better shot to the school, for the elementary school that's just to the north of there, and I think it looks well. The one thing I would recommend, so I live in Tuscany, so I understand what units he's talking about. The thing that we've noticed that works the best is if you can actually give them one side instead of having small lots on both sides. If you give them one side, it gives them a little bit better yard. I think it looks, it's not something that I'm going to recommend or require, but I think overall, I think it looks a lot cleaner, so. But on that, I'm for the project.
Madam Chair, I would just agree with the other commissioners that I think they've done a thoughtful job of listening to staff's requests and making sure that they accommodated the higher density. Looks like they've been thoughtful about consistency with the other neighbors, surrounding neighborhoods and the open space. I'd feel comfortable moving forward as well.
Yeah, and I understand staff's wanting to, stay within the guidelines of the comprehensive plan. I really like the lower density plan, especially being down here, kind of locked into this corner. They're not going to have access to Lake Hazel anyway, even though that's going to be a major, really major thoroughfare. But this is what's before us, so any other?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner?
I have a question for staff. It says on the staff report, with the increase in density, staff recommends an R15 zoning district instead of an R8. Does that change their need to do or request for a step down on the comprehensive plan, or?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Perot, the applicant is still, a step down is still needed.
Okay.
again, the comprehensive plan designates this property medium high density residential, which is 8 to 15 units per acre. Medium density is 3 to 8 units. They're still
there.
mid-range
Yeah.
in the medium density. The R15
Even if they're
is
in
just to
R15.
accommodate the smaller lot sizes necessary for the attached units.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure I understood that.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to City Council of file number H-2017-0149 on the hearing date of January 18th, 2018.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve H-2017-0149. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. So at this time, we will open the public hearing for H-2017-0140 Timberline subdivision, and we'll begin with the staff report.
Bear with me 2 seconds here. Anya. Lost my system up here. Okay, so this project before you evening has been continued since from December 21st till tonight. I can go through the entire staff report if you'd like, or we can touch on the things that was continued to discuss. There should be a memo, or there is a memo in the file that indicates a couple of things that the commission had concerns with. One was into the plat here. If you follow my mouse, the original plat indicated that this common lot here, where the mouse is, would be encumbered by a temporary turnaround. The way the plat is, there are only 3 common lots for the subdivision, which doesn't meet the open space requirements. Having said that, with a large turnaround in here on this lot, it would have encumbered this common lot for an extended period of time. And so commission asked the applicant to revise the plan to show how that would be altered to not have that be an issue. One of the other things that was discussed at the Planning and Zoning Commission that they wanted to address was irrigation and how irrigation was going to function on the property. There were some concerns from the surrounding neighbors as to how that would work. So having said that, I can go through any items in the staff report or the entire thing if there are, is a desire for me to do that this evening.
You know, Josh, why don't you go, I don't know who was here and who wasn't that night, so
You got it.
do we want to, I think even it was before.
Happy to do so. So this site consists of approximately 17.3 acres of land, which is zoned R8. So this is just a plat. It's not an annexation. This property is already annexed into the city. Property to the north, and just for orientation's sake, if you're looking at the plat itself here, north would be to the left. So to the north are single-family homes in the Bear Creek subdivision, which is zoned R8. To the east is a rural residential property. To the south is single-family residential property in the Kentucky Ridge Estate subdivision and Biltmore Estate subdivision, which is zoned R4. To the west is single-family residential property in the Kentucky Ridge Estate subdivision, also zoned R4. So in 2013, this property was annexed and zoned as part of the city-initiated annexation from RUT to entirely R8. And the comprehensive plan, future land use map designation for the property is medium-density residential. So this proposed plat consists of 58 building lots and 7 common lots on the 17.3 acres of land in the R8 zoning district. The gross density for the subdivision is 3.41 dwelling units per acre, has an average lot size of 8,490 square feet. All of the proposed lots comply with the dimension standards of the UDC for R8. There is a condition in the development agreement that any lots that abut the Kentucky Ridge subdivision be 10,000 square feet in size, and the applicant, the plat does comply with that. So those would be these lots here along the Kentucky Ridge South, and they're all 10,000 square feet or larger. There are several existing structures on the site that will be demolished as part of the project. Phasing plan, as you can see here on the plat, indicates that the southern portion, or this right side here, with that being phase 1, coming from the Biltmore Estate subdivision, and Phase 2 being along Victory Road. Vehicular access is proposed for this site via one access to Victory and a substreet to the south, which is South Bear Claw Avenue. The applicant is proposing one additional substreet in this case to the east. Previously, there were two. With this revision here to a common lot now instead of a public road, that substreet is no longer being proposed. Sidewalks are required along all public streets. The applicant proposes to construct a 5-foot wide attached sidewalk along internal streets and a 5-foot detached sidewalk along the entire frontage of West Victory Road. I know there was some discussion the previous hearing in December that the sidewalk be extended in the first phase, this being the second phase of development, that the sidewalk be extended to a portion where there would be possibility for a crosswalk along Victory Road. So just a reminder on that was part of the discussion. There are several lots that are encumbered by an existing easement. Any existing utility mains crossing this property that are no longer in use or needed must be abandoned, and any associated easements will be need to be released or relinquished. The applicant is aware of that. A minimum of 10% qualified open space is required to be provided for this development. With the 17.3 acres for the plat, a minimum of 1.73 acres of qualified open space is required, as required in the UDC. Since the application was submitted, the applicant has revised the plat and has not yet submitted a revised landscape plan with the revised open space calculations. All developments consisting of 5 acres or more are required to provide a minimum of one site amenity, and one additional site amenity is required for each additional 20 acres. So in this case, one amenity is required. The applicant has indicated that they are proposing several different amenities. Not nailed down those exactly because we do not have a landscape plan to indicate what those amenities would be, but they'd indicated that it would be, at the time, a tot lot, half-court basketball court, and a section of the city's regional pathway. Back here to the elevations, these are the conceptual elevations being proposed by the applicant. I did receive testimony from Dustin Hilgert. This was back in about October over concerns with the noticing for the project. That concern has since been taken care of. They did an additional neighborhood meeting. There was an error initially with number of notices that were sent out. So with that, staff is recommending approval with conditions. And I'll stand for any questions you have.
You go back to that plat, Josh. Okay, so we had, just to refresh everybody's memory on our concerns, because this was before Christmas, we had that road there that was going to go out to that common lot, was going to be a big turnaround. Do we have the original one?
I don't have it
Okay.
pulled up. I can find it really quickly if you'd like. But it was about a 90-degree turn right about here.
Yeah.
And because there's nothing on this lot next door, no development proposed, in order to accommodate the over 150 feet that road would have been, a common lot would have been encumbered by a turnaround to accommodate the fire truck, essentially.
Right. So we've got that now that's turned into kind of a common driveway almost, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then the sidewalk that'll be done in phase 1 just to get the crosswalk to Stoddard.
Correct.
Right, okay.
We'll also mention quickly that there is an easement. Two things I guess I'll mention. One, there is an easement here for utilities, so there's going to be a 14-foot gravel road or to accommodate any utility trucks need to get back there from the city.
Okay.
There's also an easement that runs along this south side of these lots here that staff would recommend. And having said that, this is proposed for a common lot. Biltmore Estates has a common lot that will abut common lot in this subdivision. So staff's thinking is that if there was some sort of a pathway proposed, even a 5-foot pathway to get out to the road here, this area could be a little bit more have greater accessibility than just down the common
Right, instead of
driveway.
going down those people's common driveway that they
It
come.
may not be immediately visible with these homes here that surround this lot, that if there was a pathway, it'd be a little bit
Right, so
easier
people
to access.
could access it to it from the public street. Yeah, okay. So those were the two main things why we asked to continue it and bring it back, right?
Yeah, there was a concern about irrigation as well.
The irrigation,
Don't
yeah.
remember the details of that discussion. Some of the neighbors might be able to enlighten us a
Right.
little bit about that concern, but that was a major point of discussion at the
Yeah.
previous hearing.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for staff?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Perot?
so I'm sorry, is that turnaround no longer needed? Maybe I missed that. Or is that,
Correct. It's not 150 feet anymore.
okay,
So they've
I see what you're saying.
they've indicated that
Okay, I understand.
the reduction of that length now
Right.
is not required.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. At this time, would the applicant like to come forward?
Madam Chairman, members of the commission, Penelope Riley, Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho 83701. I don't ever like to argue with staff, but I do have the memorandum that I attached to our updated materials that we submitted on January 8th. And there was, in fact, an updated landscape plan that was submitted at that time. And I just happen to have a copy of it, so I'll
Okay.
give it to staff.
Okay.
But there wasn't anything in it. It's fine. I'm going to look too, just to make sure.
Perhaps it was my bad, which is possible. Let's see. I wanted to recap our conversation at the last hearing. We discussed the improvements to Victory Road adjacent to the site, and the conclusion was that since there's full pedestrian facilities on the north side of Victory Road, all the way from Stoddard to Meridian Road, that additional improvements were not needed on our site at this time. And at the request of the commissioner, we're going to put in the stub sidewalk that goes across what would be Stoddard if it's extended southward and out a little bit farther so that the pedestrians can walk across that area and be able to access the crosswalk to get to the north side of Victory Road. Let's see. So as a part of that, we're requesting the condition of approval 1.1.7 be replaced with a condition that references the stub sidewalk to a line slightly beyond the line extending from the east side of the existing sidewalk on Stoddard South to the side, and that references the landscape buffer on Victory Road, and the sidewalk will be removed from conditions of approval until Phase 2 is under formal consideration. For new discussion, the continuance of the hearing for Timberline was based on a request for an updated landscape plan. And if I did not get that submitted, I apologize. We did have it ready. And we're able to confirm that there is, in fact, 10% common area, which meets the requirement for the city of Meridian. There was a request for additional information regarding water rights and a request for redesign of the the southeast corner of the site. So an updated landscape plan and perhaps an updated preliminary plat and perhaps a landscape plan was submitted to staff on January 8th. The follow-up packet also included water rights information obtained by the project engineer and photographic details of the proposed subdivision community area amenity. The volume of the irrigation water rights for the site at this time is a minimum of 9.89 minors inches, or about 89 gallons per minute. The site has been, for the last few years, receiving about 20 minors inches, and the project engineer and applicant are working to formalize the higher water delivery if possible. Just a sidebar on that. as development occurs, the demand for irrigation water declines. So what was happening in the property owners getting excess water is that the irrigation ditch company has excess water. They don't have the same level of demand because the irrigated farmland is turning into residences. So they're going to try and up that water right if possible. But the 9.89 miners inches is, I believe, more than sufficient to provide the PI system for the subdivision. I did want to note also that a pump station is proposed for the southeast corner of the site. So this will be a traditional pressurized irrigation system where there's a pump station, an HOA, ownership and management with, I'm sure, a contractor that maintains the equipment and comes in and does repairs when they're necessary. There's a minor modification to the location of a common area in Phase 2. Originally, it was proposed for Lot 34, Block 2, which is along the west side of the property about midstream. The parcel this parcel is now proposed to be residential, which is probably a better use for it because it's tucked away. It'll be more private and quiet. And the new location of the common lot is Lot 24, Block 2. So if you look at the access driveway in, and there's the center island, and then you cross the first street, it's the next lot on the right. It's actually labeled common lot there. We thought that would be more centrally located, but away from Victory Road. The southeast corner has been redesigned with this common lot shared driveway for the 3 residential lots that are proposed there. And then, per your preference, we now have a large unencumbered common area down in that corner. As discussed at the December 21st hearing, the project team has submitted a legal description or descriptions and exhibit materials for vacation of the utility easements not in the right-of-way that are no longer needed by the City of Meridian. We stand ready to assist the City of Meridian at any time with this. The holder of the easement is the City of Meridian. So we cannot release the easement. Only the City of Meridian can release the easement. So we've provided them with materials prepared by a surveyor, and we're all ready to help in any way we can to get those easements released. Construction traffic, just another sidebar. The applicant is going to prepare a gravel surface that traverses the site from the north on Victory Road so that all the construction traffic coming into the site during development of Phase 1 will come down from Victory Road. They won't be driving through the subdivision and dropping big clumps of mud, which is what they do because they're driving around in muddy areas. So we're going to protect the neighbors to the south by providing that secondary construction access. It'll be closed once it's not needed anymore. And the pathway that was discussed along the south property line, that was a new one for me. And I'm sure that we'd be happy to accommodate you. I just didn't, that was new. I didn't recall that discussion. So and we can get feedback from staff on what they're looking for specifically. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. I have one question on the common areas. Do you have thoughts or proposal yet on what amenities are provided in those, or
those were, excuse me, Madam Chairman, that was the set of photographs that we submitted.
Okay.
That showed the covered area with the concrete pad and picnic tables. I call it kind of a community area where people can gather. So we did submit some photographs for that.
I have those here. Let me show you those.
It was a rainy day, obviously.
There's several. That's one there.
Yeah.
Metal poles with wood canopy, metal roof, but on the other side, I guess the understanding here is it's
And a nice detail on the underneath of that.
And that's the same amenity on all the common lots?
No, just
Okay.
one common lot needs to have the amenity. The others will be grassy areas, open grassy areas.
Our code does allow for a picnic, covered picnic area with benches to be considered an amenity, so that would meet the requirement.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, we'll take public testimony. I have one name on the sign-up sheet, but it says they do not wish to testify, but is there anyone in the room that would like to testify at this time? Okay. So in that 2 seconds, did anybody decide they have more questions for the applicant? No? All right. Then I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing on item H-2017-0140, Timberline subdivision.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2017-0140. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. I think they've done exactly what we've asked them to do. It was a lot, when I was reading the staff report, I was having trouble remembering all what that was all about, because it was
like three
before
different
Christmas.
issues. There was also
Yeah.
three different kind of not related issues. So.
Yeah, yeah. But I think to go ahead and change item 1.1.17, that was specifically the detail that required them to do the landscape all along Victory. But I think Commissioner Yearsley's suggestion that they just do it to meet up with the crosswalk at Stoddard is a good compromise in phase one.
Josh, or Madam Chair.
Mr. Yearsley.
Josh, on that, that common lot to the north that goes to, you talked about having a pathway there. Do we need to add that as a condition of approval? Or is that already in your staff report?
No. So let me make sure I understand, because on the map here, north is left.
Oh,
So are
no,
Yeah.
sorry, to the south, sorry.
Yeah.
On the south side here,
Yes,
yeah, you would need to add that as a condition
Okay.
if you want
Okay.
to do that.
Yeah, because I like that.
And that's not a requirement that they do that. It would just help with the,
oh, no, I think it's a
originally
great
with the
idea.
sidewalk going along there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have
Yeah.
been a concern.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I like that, having that access, pedestrian access from the public road instead of going down.
Yep.
That if people feel a little funny walking down, even though it's a common driveway, it still
yeah, it feels
And
like.
just-
feels like somebody's driveway.
Just so you know, in order to meet code, that would need to be a 10-foot sidewalk or pathway with a 5-foot landscape buffer on one side to meet
Okay
code.
with that. So,
So, assuming the applicant can accommodate that with their plan, that's what code would require.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Yearsley.
I like the new layout. I think it looks much better. I gives them more of the open space, and it addresses that. And I guess the one other thought that if you ever wanted to potentially do a stub street, we could actually look at that little turnaround there before the common driveway. Could you actually put at least a right-of-way through that for a potential through street there, or not?
Are you talking about this common driveway here?
No, just to the south of that, right there. Could you actually put a potentially,
I think that would be a possibility depending on how that's structured and if the highway district is comfortable with the configuration of what would then be an intersection here.
yeah.
That would be a discussion for them to see if that would be okay. Sure.
That would
It'd be a little funky.
It'd be a little, yeah, and not, I think mostly to allow it if it needs to, or, if the other applicant doesn't want to have that, they don't need to have that, but as an option. So, but other than that, I think it looks good. I'd be curious to what other people thought about not doing the landscaping as part of phase one along Victory Road, except for just that small piece. I just seemed like it was a fairly decent compromise because there really is no other access to the north. And so, and given today's climate, I imagine that phase 2 will be pretty fast, so.
Yeah. That was kind of my thought when we had the discussion on the compromise, that, you know, while all the trucks are going in and out of there, just go ahead and leave it. But I do like the pedestrian access, being able to come from that other subdivision and at least get across Victory to Stoddard in the crosswalk. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Perot.
if I understand correctly, there will be this picnic area in one of the common lots. The other 2 common lots will just be green grass. And the staff report suggests 2 site amenities, but that is sufficient?
Josh
Technically,
tells
code
me it
requires
meets
one.
code.
One for the first 5 acres and another for the next 20. And they have 17, so 1 is all that's required in this case.
Okay.
Always appreciate going over
Yes, we do,
the
don't we?
minimum requirement, but this does meet the minimum requirement, so.
It just seems that the common lots are pretty far apart from one another, and that you'd have a really, if they chose to put it in this common lot to the south, you'd have a pretty long walk to utilize that from the northwest corner,
Well, there's,
depending on where it's located.
yeah, there's another one right there in the corner.
Right.
As you're coming in, and then another one in the northeast corner.
I just meant if they locate that picnic area to this, on that south common lot by chance,
Yeah.
then, you know, that's a pretty significant distance from,
Sure. Madam Chair, just
But-
quickly, you may ask the applicant where they're intending to put this picnic area. Looking through the landscape plan, it does not indicate exactly where that would be. So it's the common lot down here, this larger common lot here, and then there's another up on Victory.
And
On
one,
the previous plat, there was one in this
Yeah.
location here that they've since changed.
yeah,
She's indicating it's this common lot here.
yeah, I would suggest one of the
Yep.
2 farther to the south.
Larger.
Yeah. That way you're not inviting people off Victory into your subdivision. Okay. I'm good with that one.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Yearsley.
after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to City Council of file number H 2017-0140 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of January 18, 2018, with the following modifications: that modification 1.1.7 be revised to not require the full site amenities to be constructed along Victory Road, but to provide a sidewalk to the north side of Stoddard Road and a crosswalk or access to the road so they can have a potential crosswalk there. And then
In phase 1, but it still needs
as
to.
part of phase
yeah.
1, yes. And then the frontage still needs to be done as part of phase 2, but, and then to add a pathway in the common lot and make that common lot a little bigger to the south to access that southern common lot area
From the road.
from the road.
Yep.
I'll second.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve file number H-2017-0140 with amendments. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we'll open file number H-2017-0157, and we'll begin with the staff report.
Give me just a second here. Madam Chair, members of the commission, this last application from me before you tonight is the Kobe Cope Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment and a rezone. This site site consists of approximately 10.12 acres of land, which, as you see, is currently zoned CG and IL, located on the northeast corner of East Franklin and North Locust Grove Roads. To the north is our industrial uses. What is now the Parks and Maintenance Facility, zoned IL. To the east is a single-family residential property and industrial property, and a commercial auto repair business, which is zoned CG. To the south is our single-family residential home, zoned RUT, and multifamily residential, which is zoned R15 in the city of Meridian. And to the west is vacant property, zoned CG and IL. In 2017, a rezone, which was called Gensco, and associated development agreements, and a combined preliminary final plat for Madden subdivision were approved for this property, which is the reasoning that this portion of property to the north is currently zoned IL. The comprehensive plan, the current comprehensive plan, future land use map designation is commercial. The applicant proposes to amend the future land use map within the comprehensive plan to change the land use designation on approximately 10.12 acres of land from commercial to industrial, and to rezone the southern 5.62 acres of land from CG to IL, which would then be in compliance with the comprehensive plan being requested, or a map amendment being requested, rather. And as noted above, with the previous development application, the northern half of this parcel was recently rezoned to the IL zoning district. Along with that, again, a rezone is desired so the applicant can develop the east parcel. And again, east parcel meaning I don't have the subdivision plat shown here on the map, but it would be the east parcel is what roughly indicated by my cursor here, so that the east parcel can develop with an automotive repair facility. No other development is proposed on the adjacent parcel or the parcel to the west on the hard corner. To ensure that the site develops in conjunction with the submitted concept plan, which I'll show you here in a second, and elevations, staff recommends the applicant enter into a development agreement. So again, the comprehensive plan on the top here is the current comprehensive plan, future land use map, indicated as commercial in red, and the proposed would be industrial, or indicated here in gray. And as I mentioned, the applicant is proposing to develop this parcel, or the parcel would be on the southeast corner of this property, as a Cope Collision Center. This is the conceptual site plan that they've supplied to staff. Again, this would be something that would be they'd be tied to in a development agreement. They've also given us some conceptual building elevations, and part of the reason why staff in certain cases will recommend a development agreement with a rezone is because in this case, this is substantially better or a nicer building than what we would normally see in an industrially zoned property. So staff is of the opinion that we'd like to tie them to their proposed building elevations. So there's a greater likelihood that something like this would be constructed rather than what we would normally get in a residential, in an industrial zone. Moving on, as I said, the applicant is proposing an automotive repair facility, or an automotive repair facility major, as our code indicates, with an accessory outdoor storage yard as part of that concept plan. Future use of the site must comply with the specific use standards for both of those uses. As I said, there are some conceptual building elevations. Access to the site restricts access to arterial streets when access is available from a local street. This property has frontage on Nola Road, Lanark Street, Franklin Road, and Locust Grove Road. There are 2 existing access points to the site, and this is the site overall, not just the Cope Collision site. These access points were defined with the Madden subdivision, giving them the access point. In this case, staff has in the development agreement that the site share, probably best shown here, share an access and have a cross-access agreement for an access point approximately in this location, rather than each having their own. Those accesses being granted again with the Madden subdivision. A 10-foot wide street buffer is required to be provided along North Nola Road as set forth in the UDC. A 25-foot landscape buffer is required along East Franklin Road and North Locust Grove Road, which are both considered arterial roadways. No fencing at this time is being proposed. Again, that will be something that we will review with their certificate of zoning compliance for any future businesses that are developed here. They'll have to come forward with a certificate of zoning compliance and a design review, even though the conceptual plan would be tied to the site with the development agreement. Staff is recommending approval of both the rezone and the comprehensive plan map amendment, and I'll stand for any questions you have.
Any questions for staff at this time? The applicant like to come forward?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, my name is Sherry Stiles. I'm with Engineering Solutions at 1029 North Rosario in Meridian. And I'm here tonight representing Kobe LLC and Cope Holdings LLC to rezone the property as Josh said, at the northeast corner of Franklin Road and North Locust Grove Road. You recently saw this property come before you as the Madden subdivision and the rezone for the Gensco building. The Madden subdivision plat is currently at Ada County right now, waiting for the review from the Ada County surveyor. And they have also, the owner of the Madden subdivision has also deposited a bond with ACHD, slightly over $100,000 to complete the road improvements around this entire parcel. Cope would be taking the area right at the northwest corner of Nola Road and Franklin, that lot there. Cope Auto has been in Meridian. They began in 1963 at 210 East Fairview, which is where the current West Side Body Works is. And then in 1982, they moved to their current location, which is at 1855 East Lanark. They actually have their facility where they're located right now is virtually kitty corner from where they want to build their new facility. So as part of this, we'll be cleaning up the comp plan map to request that entire area be zoned industrial. The property was actually annexed in 1996, and at that time, Locust Grove did not even extend north from Franklin. There's been a tremendous amount of growth since then, of course, and the property's been available for commercial use for all these years, and it's just not really had any great interest. Now that there is less and less industrial ground in Meridian, the industrial ground, the prices are almost competitive with the commercial prices. And so this area, the entire corridor at one time was designated industrial, but we think it's a very good use for this and a good neighbor to all of the other uses in the area. As you can see on the, we've got Builders Masonry Products about a quarter mile further west there on Franklin. A lot of big trucks come through this intersection. I don't know if you've ever been there at rush hour. It's just really not conducive to having a lot of in and out traffic, and we think this is an excellent use, and of course are excited to have Cope Auto build a new facility. This is showing the property as you go looking to the Meridian Parks facility on the north side of the road there. Basically, it's been a lot of horses out there. And this project, once it's complete, they'll have sidewalks down NOLA and on Lanark. And again, this is a conceptual site plan, as Josh had showed. And their building is a very nice facility. I don't know if you've seen their present facility. They run a very clean operation. It's if you go down there, you'd be hard pressed in knowing which one was the one with the wrecked cars, because they maintain it so well. With that, I will stand for any questions and ask that you consider this favorably and give us your recommendation.
Any questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner
It
Perot?
says here that you're considering putting in an outdoor storage yard, but there wasn't any fencing proposed.
If they will, once they come in with the building permit, they'll have to go through the design review. If they propose the outdoor storage at that time, if they're not going to have room inside their facility, they will have to show their fencing details as part of their building permit and the whole certificate of zoning compliance.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Holland?
in the map that you've provided here too, it says screen storage area and future addition. Is the future addition just talking about that extended parking storage area?
Let me go back. Madam Chair, Commissioner Holland, I believe that if Rick Cope is here today, at one point, I mean, if they needed to add a paint booth in the future or something, they could come back, but that would probably be where their outdoor storage would be if they have it, and it would all be screened fencing.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have no one else signed up to testify on this application, but is there anyone in the room who would like to do so? Okay. So with no more questions for the applicant or staff, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on item H-2017-0157.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I
Wilson.
move to close the public hearing on H-2017-0157.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on H-2017-0157. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I
Commissioner
think
Perot.
this is a great proposal for this location. I don't, as far as what they're proposing, as far as changing it to industrial, it seems to me to fit what else is going on in that area.
Yeah, when I first started reading the staff report, and I thought, and I know what this part of this has been before us before, but I was just thinking, okay, that intersection, why do we want to do? You know, it's a pretty visible intersection. But then I saw the building that they're wanting to put there, and I was very impressed. I think even though it has an industrial use, it's a beautiful facility, and I agree that development agreement to make sure that that's the building that goes in there.
Yes.
I think it would be a nice addition to that corner. As well as, I don't know if we have any teeth in it or if it just goes before design review, whatever other building goes next to it, even though it's zoned industrial now, that it be appealing for that corner.
Madam Chair, if I remember right, when we first heard this, they had talked about putting a C-store in that lot there on the corner. Does that change their ability to do that if this goes to industrial use?
Sure. Madam Chair, I guess a couple of things. One, yeah, there had been some discussion about doing a convenience store on the corner. Talking with the owner of the property, he's trying to get that to happen for quite a while and hasn't had any success in getting a C-store. I'm not sure if the traffic flow is correct for that or what the issue is on the corner, but he hasn't been able to do that, so he's looking at other options. One, I will say that the specific use standards, you had some concerns, or some of the commission has concerns about screening of an outdoor storage. Typically, body shops have an area where they will store their cars that are in need of repair. This being a proposed body shop. The specific use standards would classify that area as outdoor storage. And there are specific use standards that say if you have something like that, it has to be fully screened from view. So that, again, that will be something that we'll review with the certificate of zoning compliance. Typically with a rezone like this, we just get a concept plan, and obviously some of those things aren't nailed down. We get bike racks and landscaping and things like that. So that's all stuff that we would review in the future. The other thing I was going to mention, now I've lost it. Yes, this is a rezone for that entire southern portion of the property. There is a development agreement. Madam Chair, you'd mentioned that you'd like to see something potentially be required for that other portion of the property. Would be the western side. So we've included some elevations and conceptual plan for this rezone, which essentially covers that entire southern portion here. If the desire is to have something greater as far as elevations go, for that there's the ability to add something to the development agreement. First thing that comes to mind is potentially requiring that any business that be any building that be built there be tied to the commercial standards that we have for the architectural standard
That's
versus the
kind of what I was
industrial.
thinking.
So that's something to think about if you want to go that direction. But currently we don't have anything that's going to require a certain type of building or materials for that.
I just hate to see a metal building go up there that's usually allowed in an industrial area.
Agreed.
Go on that corner. Yep. Okay. Any other discussion?
Well, Madam Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
I was just happy too that this is a homegrown company. I think they've been around for 54 years. I thought that was really neat. That's kind of I look at that as kind of an industrial corridor, knowing some of the other companies in that area. Like I said, it fits with a busy corner, but then it also fulfills that industrial purpose, and even better, it's a Meridian grown company. So I'm very happy about that.
Any other comments? We're ready for a motion. Vice Chair Rowe.
Madam Chair, after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H 2017-0157 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of January 18, 2018, with no modifications.
Nope. Include. Yeah. Okay.
With the following modification, excuse me. Josh, how should I word this? Just
include
state
the
this.
proposed agreement provisions as shown.
Okay. With including the proposed development agreement provisions A, B, C, D, and E.
Madam Chair, members of the commission.
Commissioner Perks.
I think if I heard you correctly, and as Josh has explained to you, you can modify one of these provisions to say that they apply the commercial architectural standards manual, commercial standards to this site. Is that something you want to do at this time? Because your
That's
motion
what I'm
should
trying to
include
get
that.
to. Yes.
Okay.
What he said.
Okay. Including the commentary by Mr. Parsons.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve file number H-2017-0157 with modifications. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. So at this time, we'll move on with H-2017-0166, Design Team Rezone, and we'll begin with staff report. As soon as we change staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The last item, or one of the last public hearing land use applications before you, is the designing team rezone. The site consists of 0.36 acres of land, currently zoned R15 within the city limits. The subject site is located at 1226 2.5 Street. The map on the left actually shows the current zoning, and the map on the right is the exhibit that shows what the current land use is on the property. So currently, it's kind of an anomaly here in our downtown area. What you're seeing here is back in 2002, this applicant approached the city, received a conditional use permit and a variance to develop a hair salon on the subject property. That must have been a use exception or something allowed in that ordinance at that time that we no longer have in our current code. The applicant has expressed to staff that they're wanting to resell or sell this property to another potential commercial use. However, since the approved conditional use specifies that home salon, staff doesn't really have a mechanism to rezone this or allow them to establish another commercial use on this without rezoning the property. As I mentioned to you earlier in my presentation, you can see here, as I mentioned, it's an anomaly. You have R15, you have high-density residential. But the subject property is part of the Urban Renewal District's boundary. So in essence, what they're doing on the site does meet the requirements of the comprehensive plan. The director has the ability to float that designation across 2.5 Street to allow the applicant to seek a rezone. And the primary reason for that is because, one, it is part of the Urban Renewal District's boundary. Two, comprehensive plan maps, colors on the map aren't parcel specific, like a zoning boundary is. And three, the site is primarily developed and likely not to redevelop anytime soon. So those are really the three factors in which staff analyzed this request and approved or support the request to rezone to Old Town. This exhibit here before you is the approved concept plan that was approved with the conditional use in 2002. As I mentioned in the staff report, as it's currently constructed, some of the dimensional standards do not meet current code. However, the approved variance somewhat runs with this land to allow them to stay vested with the current improvements. So because the applicant is not proposing any changes to the site, staff is not recommending that the site come into compliance with the UDC. However, we have recommended that the applicant at least install a bike rack to comply with the bike parking standards in our current UDC. And I believe the applicant was told that at the pre-application meeting, and they were in agreement to add that facility to the front entry of their building. To staff's knowledge, we have not received any additional testimony on this application. As I mentioned to you, the director has approved this site to float the Old Town zoning designation across this property so that they can move forward and develop this consistent with the comprehensive plan. I'll conclude my presentation and stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff? Would the applicant like to come forward?
I don't have a whole lot to say.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Gillespie. I'm representing the designing team, my wife and her two partners, Marcy Rude and Lorinda Jenkins. And basically, we just want to get it zoned. We did everything before 15 years ago. The business has been there for 15 years, very successful. And we're looking to sell, and the buyer, of course, it says personal services, but for a professional service, don't throw a rock at me. But for professional service, which a chiropractor is actually looking to buy it, it would have to be zoned Old Town, be a professional service.
And I'm sorry, can you pull that mic up so our recorder can get it? Thanks.
And anyway, that's why we're going for the rezoning. You know, and at the time I worked with the city of Meridian. We built the sidewalks and the Mo strip. We were the first ones on the street to build according to the Old Town Meridian style, which is the Mo strip and the 3-foot sidewalk. And we got that changed with ACHD.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't have anybody on the list who indicates that they'd like to testify, but is there anyone in the room who would like to testify at this time? Okay. Thank you. With there being no more questions for the applicant or staff, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on item H-2017-0166.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on item H-2017-0166, Design Team Rezone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any thoughts? Opinions? I don't see a problem with it. It's one service for another, and I think the Old Town designation is just fine to float across the street. There. Keep that going. And I think I did see in the staff report, there's some things that don't conform to today's code, but as long as they don't do any building changes, that's okay. But if they start moving the building, doing changes to the building, then they've got to bring other stuff up to code, so.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Perot.
see if I can get this one right. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the City Council of file number H2017-0166 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of January 18th, 2018, with no modifications.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve file number H-2017-0166, design team rezone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair.
No?
Oh, no.
No. We have one more item on the agenda.
That's right. I did see that.
Congratulations, though, yours is finished. We have, Mr. Parsons has a review and approval of the final plat landscape modification checklist.
Thank you, Madam
We'll hear
Chair.
his
Before I get into the changes to the checklist, I just wanted to let the applicant know that their project will be in front of City Council here in about a month. Hey, Perry? Perry?
Sir?
With them on an email.
There you go.
Perry, I wanted to let you know that you're going to be in front of City Council in about a month, so 10 days prior to the public hearing, you're going to have to repost again, so keep that in mind. Get an email from us. All right. Madam Chair, members of the commission, thank you for that. Staff is here again tonight to ask for your blessing on a new checklist. And the reason for it is because our Unified Development Code requires us to come before you whenever we have major changes to our checklist, not necessarily minor changes. But as I mentioned to you at the last Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, and I brought forth those changes, this checklist should have been accompanying those changes, but inadvertently got missed, so now I'm here before you this evening. But on Tuesday evening of this week, Council did approve new fees for this subject application, so it's paramount that you guys take action on this checklist today so that we can get the new fees in and get the information out to the development community. So basically what we have before you this evening is what we see, and I think you guys have seen it with all of the amount of applications that have come before you, is typically go through a subdivision process. You guys don't act, you act on the preliminary plat, have conditions. Those conditions get forwarded on to City Council for recommendation. Well, as the final plats come in, they're not required by this body to take action on them. Staff makes sure that the final plat conforms with the conditions and the approved preliminary plat that you guys all recommended to City Council and ultimately the one that they approved. Sometimes amenities and open space and fencing, those types of things are discussed at a public hearing, and the applicants and developers agree to work with the neighbors on those types of things. In order to get those things modified and changed, that requires what we call a final plat modification. And that's a $541 application fee, and that does go back to the council for their review and their approval ultimately. What this particular checklist does is allow the developer, say for example, they go through City Council, they have an amenity that they want to swap out, fencing, they want wood fencing rather than vinyl fencing, and they weren't discussed at the public hearing. This is an administrative staff level approval where they could come in, pay a $160 fee, submit this checklist with an application, and staff could look through the minutes and verify that they in fact weren't topics of discussion at that hearing, and we could give the applicant a letter and an administrative approval, just like we do with design review and our alternative compliance requests. So that's really the main purpose for this checklist. Currently, this doesn't exist. This is a new checklist. So I am asking for your blessing this evening, and I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions for staff?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Perot?
So if I remember from the memo correctly, it says that the director already holds the right to approve those. You're just creating a checklist now to make sure that the process is more clean?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, that's an accurate observation. Currently, in Chapter 5 of the UDC, the director has the authority granted by council, the city, to approve landscape plans. So this fee will basically accompany accompany that landscape plan verbiage that's currently in Chapter 5 of our code.
So it's intended for minor changes that aren't really necessary to go through a public hearing again. And is there a list of the types of changes that the staff can make? Is there a limitation to that, or how does that?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, currently there is not. Again, on the checklist, we specified the applicant provide that information to us in a narrative, the project name, when it was approved. What are you modifying? Well, verify with us that it meets current code or meets code still, and that it was not a topic of discussion. So we've kind of bulletized those items on the checklist for the applicant to kind of provide us that information, and then ultimately staff will check that against the record. And that's where that fee comes in. It takes staff time to do that and look into the record. But currently, like I said, the caveat is really minor changes. Say, for example, they came in with a pool, and now that was shared with you, or it was in a development agreement or something in the final plat says you need to construct a pool. That type of amenity for a basketball court or a walking path, I think the director had some latitude to say, that's not proportional amenity, and that you need to go back through the final plat process and take that up with council.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
So on this application, you have verify item was not a topic of discussion in the public hearing. So we go through the process, they pay the money, we find that it is was a topic. Do they then have to come back and do a application before City Council? Is that process, or how does that process work?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Yearsley, that's how it would work, correct. If we make the determination that it is, one will either deny their request, or two will say, we can't process your application because you need to go back through this process. And so we can maybe apply that money towards that application, but staff at this level cannot approve that change.
Okay. That's why I just wanted to make sure that was what my thinking was, so thank you.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? Or would somebody like to make a motion?
So we're making a motion to recommend approval to City Council, is that correct, or are we just approving this?
We're approving it.
All right. Madam Chair.
Commissioner Yearsley.
I recommend that we approve the modification to the planning development landscape plan modification checklist.
Here you go.
Second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the final plat landscape plan modification checklist. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Wilson.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn for this evening.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting of January 18th. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.